Hi, I'm Albert Hitchcock. I'm a Non-Executive Director with Nationwide Building Society. I have a 30-year career in technology. So I started out in telecommunications with Nortel Networks, where I was the global CIO. Then moved to Vodafone Group, where I was the CIO at Vodafone. Then moved to Pearson, where I was the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Technology Officer. Pearson is the world's largest learning company and big in media and publishing. And since I've left Pearson, I've been a Non-Executive Director. So I think business has changed very rapidly over my career, and a lot of that is associated with the ever increasing march of technology and digital. I think that some of the challenges are associated with companies that are having to adapt to their market or maybe new markets, and have maybe come from a more traditional base where they have a lot of legacy. So how companies adapt that legacy to now serve consumers today is very different. And so there's a lot of adaptation needed for companies. And I think that cycles of change have really sped up, certainly in the last decade. And so how companies adapt to the ever-changing needs is a challenge, and companies are having to learn how to do that. Well, my time at Pearson was a really interesting time because Pearson is a 175-year-old British company that started life in the construction industry, interestingly enough. It decided to dedicate its focus to publishing in the 1920s. So still a long way period of time. And when I joined in 2014, it was still predominantly a publishing house with very traditional processes and ways of working. And I had this vision about creating a platform for Pearson. So I called it the Netflix for education, but could we create a platform model for the company? And I've spent the last 8 years doing that. And in fact, GlobalLogic helped me to build the platform, microservices in the cloud, creating the ability to deliver adaptive educational experiences online. And I think that's very exciting because it means that we can serve learners around the world, anywhere they are, through whatever device they're on. And much like what has happened in the music industry and the television and movie industry, the ability to deliver, high quality content online anywhere your consumers are is exciting. Now, along with that goes a very big change in terms of how you monetize. So, of course, selling books is very different from selling digital subscriptions, but the organization had to adapt itself to that change and is still adapting itself to that change. And so I think that's really good example of how an industry is having to reimagine itself in the 21st century. I've worked across 3 major industry sectors now: telecommunications, both in equipment and service provider with Vodafone, media and publishing with Pearson, and then more recently in financial services with my non-executive role. The interesting thing is that all of these industries and most other industries that face consumers are having the same challenges. Their consumers are demanding new types of services, ever increasing levels of capability, much more personalization, much richer and adaptive apps and consumer technologies. And everyone's having to adapt to that need. So there are specifics within industry sectors around how you address those needs, but there's a lot of generic need to improve experience, to use data, to build personalization, to monetize services that are very common across industry sectors. And in fact, that's one of my reflections, having moved across these different industries, that they share a lot of the same challenges. So I think the financial services sector has put a real focus in the last 5 years into delivering a much more agile-based way of working for technology delivery. It's true to say, though, that I think FS have been behind the ball in terms of being later to that digital transformation. And I think partly that's because of the regulatory environment that we work under. This sort of fail fast and learn is more challenging when you're in a regulatory environment. But I think FS is now moving faster to that sort of end state. They are truly embracing, agile-based development and adoption of the cloud and these sorts of things. But it's still a learning curve. And, other types of organizations, such as the retail sector, obviously online sector, have moved faster to that digital future. The good news, I suppose, being a follower is that you can learn from those faster organizations and build those practices in as we move forward. So I think engineering and development, clearly can be focused on, your consumer experience, whether that's through sort of a mobile app development or, how you engage with your consumers. It can also be used internally for things like how to adapt your, internal infrastructure as we move, progressively towards the cloud, out of the sort of hosted on-prem capability. I think I'm very sort of familiar with what I call a dual speed approach, because I don't believe, as an example, if you move to a sort of agile-based way of working, that you have to sort of trash all your waterfall and program management approach. I think the two have to work alongside one another. There are cases where you need a waterfall-based, project-based methodology, particularly as you think about large-scale infrastructure. But you also need to have a much faster-moving digital innovation capability, particularly as we think about product innovation and consumer experience innovation. So I think these things sort of need to sit alongside one another to be effective in most organizations. And I think if you can blend them effectively, that's a good idea. So I think it's really important that you put the customer at the center of your sort of digital innovation approach. At Pearson, we had a platform vision, and that was based upon, adjacent industries moving to platforms such as the movie industry, the music industry. And so they'd sort of trodden the path previously. And it was clear to me that the consumers we were dealing with, which were young learners primarily, were very used to that digital environment every day. They were used to using social media, Instagram, Facebook. They have an existing online capability they were very familiar with, and that had set the bar in terms of expectation. So being an educational publisher, our ability to deliver content at a similar quality of experience and a similar level of capability was really important. And then, of course, if you think about the social impact of delivering education to millions of learners, our ability to deliver high quality content, but also content that makes a difference to people's lives. So meaning that the learner could actually use the content to actually learn faster, adapt their own lives, learn new skills, create an environment where they can get better jobs or get promotions through new skills they're learning. That becomes really impactful. And so this was all tied up with our vision around, create a platform, create a fantastic digital experience, and then use that to deliver learning to learners wherever they are and whatever they need. Pearson is a profit-making business. It was a FTSE 100 company. Is a FTSE 100 company. I think the view on that is that, if we were successful through delivering fantastic digital products and services, we would get much more demand, and obviously we would make more profit, but that profit could then be invested. A lot of that profit could be invested in building ever better services and products, and so have a more impactful impact on society. So I think we saw it as being part and parcel of a successful future. Yes, creating profit, but also delivering much better products and services as an outcome. So I think data is critical to every organization, whether they're in financial services or other sectors. I think the key to it is really understanding, for instance, understanding your customer. So, how we use data to create new personalized experiences, how we really understand consumer expectation, how do we meet the customer where they are, All of that is tied into how we use and analyze the data. We used to call that 360-degree view of the customer when I was at Vodafone. And it's absolutely key to organizations' future success. Now, that's also tied up with, legacy and understanding, what data we have on the consumer, making sure that we get that as accurate as we can do. And so many organizations struggle with data accuracy and how you create a really high integrity view of your consumer and clean up that legacy, make sure it's absolutely up to date and accurate view of your consumer. All organizations are trying to get a 360-degree customer view. Some of the challenges associated with that are the fact that most organizations have vast amounts of legacy data, not all of which is accurate. And of course, consumers' expectations are changing rapidly. There's an increased focus on GDPR and data privacy. So how organizations navigate through the sort of data privacy minefield, but also have a capability to deliver the very best personalized services and products to their customer is a challenge. Whether it's in financial services or elsewhere, I think most organizations are somewhere through that process, and it involves, in most cases, cleaning up a lot of legacy data, but then also making sure that all the new products and services we create are also creating clean data from the outset. So we get this sort of golden view of a consumer, which has all the attributes associated with it, but obviously also in an environment where we're very conscious of the data privacy regulations and also consumers' expectations around that. So I think partnerships are critical for any organization, and I think particularly in the digital and technology space, working with organizations that have best practices and have worked across other sectors or other organizations that have learned how to do these things well is really critical. I don't believe you can do everything in-house. There's not enough diverse capabilities in most companies, and so there's a real need to work in partnership with other organizations that have learned how to do these things and can bring those best practices to bear on the organization that you're in. I think learning how to work effectively with partners is really important, and I see a lot of organizations really treating partners as vendors, which is not going to deliver the best outcomes. So how you truly engage in a real partnership environment and how you leverage each other's strengths in the right way and create the right level of teamwork and collaboration is key to that. And having the right mix of partners so that you've got people you can rely on for their industry knowledge, their knowledge of best practices is also key. How you manage that mix is at the core of whether this is successful or not.